Welcome to the Friday edition of CBS Sports HQ, presented by Geico. Jeremy St. Louis alongside Amanda Guerra.
You want to tell everyone what you told me earlier today?
What did I tell you?
You texted me. What did you text me, Jeremy?
What did I text you?
That you were excited to do a show together.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And then you said, my excitement is quickly waning.
Enjoy it, because the excitement is quickly waning. You know what, though? Exciting thing just around the corner, of course, the NFL season. That, of course, we continue the countdown towards that, but more pressing matters at hand for three players come Monday.
Yeah, so here's the exciting thing. NFL training camps kick off as early as next Tuesday. But as you mentioned, Monday, the deadline for those players to sign those franchise tags. Now, some players that currently are being offered the tag, and a couple of big ones who have not signed yet. Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, Evan Ingram, only Pollard with the Cowboys has signed on the dotted line. Now, any player who does not sign a multi-year deal by Monday, July 17th at 4 p.m. will be required to play under the tag or potentially sit out the season. So for more on that, let's welcome in NFL insider Josina Anderson to get the latest on those players approaching that deadline. We're going to try, JoJo, to get them signed, sealed, and delivered, okay? This is what we're going to do right now. Let's start with Saquon Barkley with the Giants. Look, he does not want to sign the tag. He wants a multi-year deal. What are you hearing in regards to Saquon?
Well, you're talking about these running backs wanting to get it signed, sealed, delivered, but mind you, man, and none of us are getting paid off of any of this. I just wanted to say that. But listen, we know that Saquon Barkley wants the bag, but the Giants want to be mindful of the market. And I really feel like to kind of understand what's going on with Saquon Barkley and the Giants, you really need to understand the running back market. So just go back to when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. At that time, there were 8 running backs making $12 million or more. And since then, there are only 5. And just quickly to go over that list, you have CMC at $16 million, Kamara at $15 million on paper, but that's really 12.5 because he's not going to see that $25 million in the last year. You got Derrick Henry at 12.5, Chubb at 12.2, Mixon at 12, Ezekiel Elliott, who got cut at 15, Dalvin Cook at 12.6, and Aaron Jones at 12. And so now you understand why the running backs are frustrated, because the market is going backward. Now, coming into 2023, we have 3 running backs who have been tagged. Only one of them has signed, Tony Pollard, and we're going to get to that. Obviously, Barkley and Jacobs have not. So let's talk about Saquon Barkley. Here's a guy who turned 26 in February, had 1,300 plus rushing yards in his first year, 1,000 plus after that, but had the ACL tear in the middle of his career and is coming off of a career year now. So from his standpoint, you could understand, guys, why he's not going to accept anything less than the 2-year average of the franchise tag value in this year and next year, which totals around 22 and has you at 11. The other thing I think people are not talking about with respect to another threshold that likely Barkley is being mindful of, if you look at the last year running back was tagged, that was in 2020. Derrick Henry got 25.5 guaranteed over the first 2 years. That averages at 12.75. So likely he's looking for more than that because that was 3 years ago. Now, from the Giants' standpoint, they're likely saying, hey, we appreciate the fact that you've had a career year, but Derrick Henry was able to get that because he had 2 1,000-plus rushing yards seasons coming into that year. You have not. And also, are you going to make it to the second year for that value of the 2-year tag value? So you can see where it's going back and forth. Now, there are multiple reports out there that he's rejected deals ranging from anywhere from between 12 and 14. You could understand why Saquon would be making a case for anywhere for 14 to 15, which would have him under CMC Christian McCaffrey, because he said that he's not trying to reset the market. That would be Christian McCaffrey at 16. So somewhere below that. And I believe in Barkley's mind, although it makes sense, and he's not directly said this to me, even though his production is under Derrick Henry, and his standpoint, from his standpoint, there's a franchise face tax. There's a good guy brand tax. There's a statesman tax that he has really performed well as far as representing this organization in the New York market. So there's something to be said for that, and you have to pay for that. So we'll see where that ends up. Obviously, the tag deadline is coming on Monday, and I don't think either side really wants it to be where Barkley is not on the playing field come obviously the season, and then obviously, wanting to get that long-term deal done before the deadline.
Interesting. You bring up a good point. He is definitely one of the faces, if not the face of that franchise there in New York. Let's talk about Josh Jacobs. Reports out there that he is willing to sit out camp without a new deal. What are you hearing in regards to him with the Raiders?
Well, it kind of reminds me of the conversation that I had with team sources back at the Combine, and they were saying even then that they wanted to get this deal done. Now, obviously, it's a little bit of a precarious situation with Josh Jacobs because the team did not exercise his fifth-year option 2022 coming into last season, and all he did was become the rushing champ in terms of rush yards. He led the league when it comes to yards from scrimmage, added 12 rushing touchdowns on top of that, and not only that, but in doing so, he outpaced Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, and Derrick Henry. And as you said, he said to a local reporter that he is not going to come to camp unless he gets that deal done. The question is, what should be done here in terms of the actual value of the deal? Now, talking to sources, and you can understand from Josh Jacobs' point, he has an argument to make more than Christian McCaffrey simply because of his production this year and how he outpaced him. Now, from the Raiders' standpoint, they're saying, let's see it maybe for a little bit longer with respect to our regime. But the fact of the matter is that Josh Jacobs has been 1,000+ running back for 3 out of the 4 seasons. Not only that, he's 25 and came into the NFL without much tread out of Alabama, only having 250 rush attempts total in the 3 years that he was at Alabama. So he has some compelling arguments to be above Christian McCaffrey. I would think it is more realistic that he may end up second.
Just, what about Dallas? I mean, you mentioned Tony Pollard there. He did sign the tag, but then you got the Zeke situation where they said, we really overpaid this guy and ended up cutting him. Zeke's still looking for a new home. What happens with Tony Pollard as Monday approaches? Could he potentially get another deal?
Well, Tony Pollard is one of the 3 guys tagged that actually did sign his deal. And, kudos to him. He deserves his credit. It was the first year that he was over 1,000 rushing yards and really started to eclipse Ezekiel Elliott. So he deserves all credit when it comes to that. The problem for him is that he fractured his left fibula against the 49ers in the playoffs. And so now he has a little bit of a durability question. He says that he will be ready for camp. The coach has basically said that he looks fast and that he's doing his thing, but he is in more of a prove-it situation in comparison to the other guys that we are talking about. So now you understand why he's running to the bank to sign that tag in comparison to the other guys, and it really doesn't make sense, in my opinion, for the team to be under pressure to get this long-term deal done, especially in the context of giving the money, giving the bag to Ezekiel Elliott at that $15 million average per year, and then seeing his production decline. So they have a ready-made in-house example of what happened the last time that they paid a running back. So I can see this is a situation where they sit tight. Now, for full disclosure, I did reach out to Tony Pollard's agent right before we came on the air, and he sent me a picture of himself on a yacht in the middle of the ocean and said he's not talking right now. So that's what we have, but I don't expect it.
I mean, at least he responded to you. If I'm on a yacht, I'm not answering any calls. Also, could we get an invite there as well? Jojo, really quickly, take us through DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, both free agents looking for new homes.
Well, Dalvin Cook is obviously still out there. We've all heard the interest from the Jets and from the Miami Dolphins as far as the teams that are in the mix there. A source said to me before I came on that there's other teams that are showing interest that we as the media are not talking about. My understanding from the Jets' perspective is that they would like to have Dalvin Cook, but they do believe that Breece Hall is going to be ready and coming back stronger, that it's going to be a bounce back year for Michael Carter, and they believe in their 3rd round draft pick, or their draft pick from this past year, Israel Honda, who has 4.3 speed out of Pittsburgh. So they believe in this guy, but they don't want to necessarily turn down Dalvin Cook. As with anything, guys, it comes to the money. And the same thing with Miami. They believe in Raheem Mostert. They believe in Jeff Wilson. It's all going to be about the money. But my understanding from talking to sources is Dalvin Cook feels like he can wait. He feels like he's a home run hitter in comparison to the running backs that are out on the market. You're talking about a guy that had 43 rushing touchdowns in the past 4 years and knows what he can do. So he's willing to wait. And some of the talk that you're hearing when you're talking to sources about what's going on in the running back market is like, what really is the point for them to put themselves out there and they're not getting paid? Like the year to really do it is in the third year as far as really getting that contract turned over. So I know that he's willing to wait. There are teams that are definitely interested. It's just a matter of what is that number below 12, because clearly if they were willing to pay the number that he was at when he was in Minnesota, they would have just traded for him. And then as far as DeAndre Hopkins, really quickly, we know that there's interest from the Patriots. We know that there's interest from the Titans. I believe these are deals that would have gotten done if it were really, in my opinion, DeAndre Hopkins' preference. When you're talking about quarterbacks like Mac Jones and you're talking about the Ryan Tannehills and Malik Willis's and their new draft pick out of Kentucky, in comparison to playing with a guy like Pat Mahomes, I think that he would prefer other teams come into the fray. The question for DeAndre Hopkins is, what are you willing to do in terms of reducing your price to maybe pay for a team that optically is more shiny in terms of their postseason, hopes? I know a team like the Chiefs was willing to give OBJ like about $4 or $5 million. Could he come down to a price like that? I don't know. I know the Ravens are interested. If the price were to come down, they're going to keep their eyes out. Obviously, they like all of the guys that they have, but they know that they can have injuries at the position with what happened to Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay. But the price would have to be much, 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 much lower. And can a guy like DeAndre Hopkins be on the team with OBJ making 15 to 18 and his number be like in the threes? Obviously, they're friends and they've trained together, but some lingering questions out there. So I think for DeAndre Hopkins, it behooves him to wait, see if another team comes into the mix, or see if there's some sort of attrition in training camp that would also benefit him as well.
Justine, I'm not sure if you can see this. I don't even think it's showing up. It's a boat. This is you and me next July. Okay. This is our butler, and we're not going to be taking any calls. So that's
that's not the infamous boat with OBJ and Sterling Shepard, when they were with the Giants. That's not that. We don't want to be in that boat.
This is just you and me and one butler, and that's it. Okay. Justine Anderson, we appreciate it. Keep an eye on her social media for the very latest when it comes to all things in the NFL, whatever breaks. We are getting so close to the NFL season. As mentioned, some of those training camps kick off next Tuesday. Monday, the deadline to sign that franchise tag.